Hi YouTube, it's me TFR Wilderness. Welcome to my channel and welcome to my final review of 2021. Yes, it's my second KTRT review of this month. That's a Korean transforming robot toy. And today I have got for you another figure from a toy line that I've only actually bought from once before. I am of course referring to the Jurassic Cops toy line. Now, going back a few years, season 1 came out, and of all the figures that they did, I decided to get one figure from the line, and the figure I decided upon was this guy. This is Jupino. Now, he's a triple changer. He transforms into 3 modes. He's got like a bus mode, he's got a Stegosaurus mode, and he's got the robot mode. It looks pretty cool. Unfortunately, he was made by a company called Choyoung Toys, and it's obvious that they had not done a complex, transforming robot toy before, because the build quality and the engineering on this thing is subpar, to say the least. I mean, he's got these stupid hollow legs, and his knees barely work at all. He's not good to handle and play with, though he does have some redeeming features. The fact that he's a triple changer. He's a great character in the show, because I used to like watching the original cartoon show, and I decided to get this guy. The rest of the figures in the line didn't really interest me. It was only this guy that I liked, but he's not the best, not the best figure. Well, he probably is the best figure out of the line, but yeah, I wasn't a huge fan of this thing when I got it and reviewed it. But anyway, I decided to buy it as an example of the toy line, and got him and reviewed him back in the day. So, yeah, things have moved on. Jurassic Cops has went into its second season or series, and they moved away from the big robots and went for these little chibi robotic dino figures, which, then they merged together to form a giant figure called King, and I wasn't interested in that at all. So what they did with the figures in season 2, no interest to me whatsoever. So moving on to more recent times, and they've actually released or done a third season, season 3. Now they've changed up the way they do things again. They've released a new cartoon show, which I've been watching and enjoying quite a lot. And they've changed the figures again, so now it's kind of like a crossover between the two. Because in the original show you had, the figures that when they found them, they were hanging around in dino mode, and then they'd transform into a vehicle mode, and then they'd transform into a robot mode and fight the bad guys. Then in season 2 they had the little chibi dinos that used to run around, and then they'd transform into, they combine into a robot would fight the bad guys. This season it's a bit of both worlds. You've got little chibi dinos, which then, when the kid does his thing with his activator on his wrist, they turn into a vehicle, which then comes in and then transforms into a robot and then fights the bad guys. But they also have a combiner gimmick as well. Now, before I get any deeper into the actual figure in the view, let's have a quick look at the box. So obviously here is Jupino, as his name is, his box, and as you can see, it's a large box with a big window. It's got on the side all the different figures you can get in the line, and then you can see the various characters on the back, the little kid, alt mode, robot mode, and his chibi dino mode. And then it's got stuff on the side and the stuff, usual box, big heavy chunky box, large window. Accessories comes with 2 sets of instructions. One set of instructions to show you how to transform the individual figure, and then a second set of instructions which shows you how to combine it with all the other figures in the line to make the the various combiner modes. Now, I've decided to go for Jupino because he is essentially the core bot of the combiner. All the other figures in the line are horrendous parts formers. They're like those weaponizers and modulators from Siege and Earthrise, where you have to take them apart in order to transform them into robot mode. All the other figures in the line do this, but they do this so that in the end they can all be taken apart and then merged together to form the new combiner, which again is called Juraking. But the core bot himself, or Jupino, he is a basic. He's the bot that everything else plugs onto. And even though he does have a little bit of parts forming, you can actually transform him without parts forming. So that's the reason why I went for him. Also, I really like his robot aesthetic going forwards. Right. But first of all, we've got the actual character himself, and that is Jupino. He's a little robotic Spinosaur, and I like Spinosaurus. They're one of my favourite, dinosaur, species. And yeah, so here's a picture of him. So that's Spino or Jupino, sorry. And he comes around and he's like talking to the kids, and then when he transforms, he turns into this thing. Now this is they transform into these sort of gems, these sort of jewels on a base, and this is Jupino's little chibi sort of dino jewel mode. Now this is the representation of him you get with the toy. As you can see, it's a little transparent red jewel. It's got a few sort of painted bits on it, and it's got a big base on the bottom. Now these things do have lights in them. The base, if you twist it, it lights up. So as you can see, there's a little LED inside. But also, it will transform into his little chibi dino mode. So if you just pull down these little things at the front, and then you can pull out the head. Now when you pull out the head, if you look, the spine comes up a little bit, like so. And there's his head, and he's got a little opening mouth, even though it doesn't open that far, only opens a little bit. And he will sort of stand up on a surface, sort of. He's got this big black plug on his butt. So yeah, but it doesn't look much like Jupino's chibi robot, chibi dino from the show. But anyway, that's him. And then when he goes to the transformation sequence, so basically, he then folds up, turns back into his gem mode. He then slots onto the activator that the kid has on his watch, and then you get like this sequence where they have some base somewhere that's nearby that opens up and shoots out this robot form, and then he arrives in his alt mode. So here is Jupino's alt mode. Now he's a typical sort of like futuristic looking blue police car. And as you can see, he's quite a large, futuristic, very swoopy looking police car. Now, this alt mode, very blue. It's got a very distinctive windscreen here, or windshield, that's black with a yellow line around it. And that's got me thinking that this figure has some aesthetic similarities with other figures from other different toy lines that I've got or seen, but we'll get into that later. Well, actually, little teaser. I've got Cyberverse Warrior Class Soundwave here, and I think alt modes wise, kind of similar, especially the windscreen area, but. A little bit more on that later. So anyway, he's a pretty cool looking bot, vehicle, sorry. It's got some nice bright police lights on the top. They're not sirens, they're lights, Mr. KR Brickbot, if you're watching. Yeah, so they're police lights on the top. It's got a black spoiler on the back. It's got transparent red lenses in the back. It's got like yellow transparent lenses in the front. It's got the logo, the Jurassic Cops logo on the front. It's also got embossed logos on the side which aren't painted. The wheels, although they don't look painted, they are actually painted the The details inside the wheels have been painted sort of like a dark grey colour, but they are painted. It's got other paint details down the side with lines. It's got obviously that really awesome looking, you know, sort of black windshield with all the yellow sort of lining detail around it. But, you know, it's a decently heavy. It plugs together pretty well, pretty solidly. And then obviously you've got robotic bits underneath. So that's all well and good. It's a pretty decent looking alt mode. I like it. Also mine, 3 of the wheels turn. One of them is sort of binding up a little bit. Don't know why. When you transform into robot mode, all the wheels spin freely. So now, robot mode. This guy has a fairly simplistic and intuitive transformation. So let's get on with that, shall we? So I suppose you can start by unpegging this spoiler on the back. This sort of holds the back of the vehicle together. Like that. And also you've got these panels on the side, which you can flip out. Like so. And then you can start unfolding things. So you've got those. And that sort of brings him out like that, and the robot mode's hat has fallen off. It does that. Right, so let's carry on with the legs. So you fold those bits back, fold those down, you go around the back. Then you've got this spoiler piece. Move that out of the way, fold that in. Then got the back of the car. Fold that in to fill in the back of the leg. And then you've got this flap here, which there's a slot there and a peg there, and that plugs in, and you've got a little black bit that you fold back, and then you bring down the toe, and there's one leg done. So you do it again. Fold in the spoiler, fold round the rear section of the car, fold up the heel spur, and then bring out the foot. And there we have the legs done. Now, moving up to the torso. You've got the arms pegged together. You can unpeg them, and then you can start folding them round. Now you get these police lights. Now there's a little bit of parts forming. It does say in the instructions you take them off during the transformation and then plug them back on, but you can actually sort of rotate them round to the correct orientation, and then straighten the torso out, and then fold the shoulder bits round and plug them in. Then you can unfold the arms like so, and then the head reveal, and there you go. And there we have Jupino. Oh yeah, and there's this other panel you can flip up in the back as well to fill in the void in his back. There we have Jupino in his robot mode, and wow, I love this robot mode so much. I love the aesthetic on it. It just looks so cool, and there are things about it, about its aesthetic nature. It's the general aesthetic of this thing that remind me so much of other robotic figures from other, sort of, comic and cartoon genres. Now, the most obvious one, which I sort of alluded to earlier, is Cyberverse Soundwave, because you look at this chest and the general blue colour of this guy, and it just gives me a huge, sort of similarity to Cyberverse Soundwave. Now, obviously I've got him here, just transform him quickly. He's quite easy to do. So yeah, Cyberverse Warrior Class Soundwave, even though he hasn't got anywhere near the paint apps that he has in the show. But the main thing is this chest. The black, sort of cassette chest with the yellow sort of lining, or gold lining, and his Decepticon sigil in the middle. I think, personally, hang on a minute. There we go. I think personally this thing has a lot of similar styling cues, to Cyberverse Soundwave. Even though this one's a lot blander, this one's got a lot more sort of colour going on. If you painted this guy up into his full sort of Cyberverse colour scheme, he would look a lot more like this in terms of sort of the colour breakup. Be a lot more white on it. But yeah, definitely I'm getting very strong Cyberverse Soundwave vibes with this guy. But that's not all. There are other figures and characters that also give me very much sort of aesthetic sort of flavours with this guy. One of them is this guy, Tobot v Captain Police. Now, yeah, again, this one's got like a dark blue and white going on. This one's got the lighter blue and white going on. Very, very similar. Also, they do have the police lights on the shoulders. So that's something that they have in common. And I think, this guy and this guy, they do sort of remind me of each other. There is a couple of other sort of figures that remind me of this guy. One of them is this. Now that is an Ingram 98 from the Pat Labor movie 1 and 2. Most notably Pat Labor movie number 1. This thing gives me such a Pat Labor vibe for the Ingram 98. Again, because it's got the police lights on the shoulders, which the Pat Labor Ingram figures have. The Pat Labors are more white, then they're all over white, but again, the design of the head sculpt with the antenna sticking off to one side, again very similar to the Ingram 98, and it's definitely got that sort of anime sort of mech aesthetic going on. And when we're talking about anime mech aesthetic, a Gundam, it's got very much a Gundam aesthetic going on. So that's the fourth sort of thing that I've got going on. The fourth, like aesthetic sort of scheme going on with this figure that I'm getting from it is a Gunpla or a Gundam. So you mix all those things together. Cyberverse Soundwave, Captain Police, Pat Labor, Ingram, and a Gundam, and you end up with something like this. Yeah, so I love the way this thing looks. It looks amazing, and I can't harp on enough about how much I love the look of this thing. Now, again, engineering-wise, isn't the best on this. It is better than this guy for sure. I mean, quick size comparison. I mean, this guy is obviously a lot chunkier and a lot bigger, but this guy has got a lot more. He's better engineered. Let's go into the articulation, shall we? The head is on a swivel. It's also on a plate that can angle backwards and forwards due to transformation, so you can get a little bit of looking up and looking down, but it does, you do get a bit of gappage that appears when it does that. The shoulders, friction joints, go all around. They do bend out to the side a little bit. I mean, if you take the police light off the top, you can get a bit more, but not much there. It's got a little ratcheted elbow that goes to 90 degrees. No bicep swivel, although I suppose you could break the sculpt up if you wanted to do something. Yeah, and these they do come off if you're not careful. So yeah, no bicep swivels. The fists, again, they're ratcheted and they fold up a little bit. But anyway, nothing at the waist. Hips, coarse ratchet, but you know, a good swing backwards and forwards. Going outwards, a very weak ratchet. They only actually do one click, as you can hear, but a sort of a normal sort of spread. No bicep thigh swivel, knee that goes to 90 degrees, and then nothing at the feet apart from a little bit of a, again, transformation joint. You can raise the toe up a little bit. So yeah, it's not the most articulated thing. A lot of the joints that we take for granted on Transformers are absent. You know, intermediate transformation joints, bicep swivels, thigh swivel, you know, waist joint, ankle tilts. Hasn't got any of that. But it's a pretty solid figure. It's, as you can hear, it's got a lot of ratchets. You know, it's got a decent amount of ratitude, which is good. And yeah, its main gimmick in the show is it forms the basis of the combiner, and you know, all the other figures can sort of plug onto it to form a bigger bot. Quick size comparison with my usual size guy, Combiner Wars Megatron, and as you can see, he's pretty solid leader class scale bot. And then we've got Jupino. Now, in his gen form, and then you turn the light on, he will plug. In fact, he's supposed to plug in the back of the robot mode, because it's essentially this guy becomes the robot. So you pull down that little flap, angle it forwards, and then you can slot the thing in like so, and then it lights up his chest. So you can turn it off, and then you can turn it on. So yeah, the LED lights up his chest. And yeah, it does have another feature which is quite interesting. You pull his hat off, you can turn his head round, put his hat back on, and he's got a robot face. He's got a mouth face. So he's got a mouth and then a face plate. That's a nice gimmick. The only thing is the head. When you plug it back on, it doesn't plug in that very securely. It does pop off quite easily if you're not careful. So yeah, the main reason I bought this is because of the look of the robot mode. I've got to admit, I think it looks amazing. It looks awesome. I love the robot mode. Oh yeah, before we finish, obviously he's got some accessories which I'll fail to mention. Right, so he comes with a gun, a very simple sort of gun, kind of like a revolver, and he's got a nightstick. Now the gun will fit in his hand, as will the nightstick. Now the gun just falls out ever so easily. It does not plug in very well. The nightstick does stay in there a lot better, but because of the a lack of, you know, sort of intermediate articulation joints, you can't do a lot with these things, to be honest. Especially the nightstick, you can't wave the nightstick around much. But he can hold the gun, he can hold the nightstick. That's all well and good. So yeah, like I said, it's the aesthetic on the robot mode is the main reason why I decided to get this guy. Also because out of all the figures from the Jurassic Cops Season 3, he's, you know, he doesn't parts form so much, apart from, you know, you can pull the police lights off the shoulders if you want. But you don't have to. As you saw, you can transform it without parts forming. And that's the reason why I went for it. So yeah, he's a decent figure. He's relatively well made. Better build quality than the other Jurassic Cops figure I've got. Yeah, he's lacking articulation. Typical for a Korean toy. But what he has is ample for what he does, or what you want him to do. And he does have this parts forming combiner gimmick, which if you get the other figures you can build him up to be a much bigger combiner, but I'm not interested in that. I just wanted this guy, and I've got this guy, and he is now the last Korean toy that I've bought this month. And that's it. That's me done with reviews for 2021. Obviously I've got a few more videos now coming at the end of the year. I've got my worst bots of the year, my best bots of the year, and my final end of month bot haul just to round everything off. So you got that to look forward to if you're a regular viewer of my videos, one of the select few, so to speak. And yeah, so I've been TFL Wilderness. Hopefully you've enjoyed this review, and I'll catch you next time. Ta-da!